Hi, my name is Yewande. Welcome back to Young Black Social Worker, the channel where I talk about all things related to social work. And welcome back to my daily dilemma series where we unpack your dilemmas. So the first dilemma that we have says, "Hi Yewande, I'm a social worker and I absolutely dread making phone calls in our open plan office. It's not that I don't know what to say, I just freeze up knowing everyone around me can hear my side of the conversation. Sometimes it's sensitive stuff, other times I just feel embarrassed. I've started putting off calls, which is making my workload worse. How can I get over this anxiety without having to hide in a meeting room every time?" First things first, I have been there. I have been that social worker who used to literally be so conscious of my voice, so conscious of what was going on around me in the office. And there would be times where I was taking my laptop or taking my phone and I was making phone calls in like a meeting room or in my car, or if I was working from home, like I'd intentionally make the phone call that I needed to make there. So you are not alone in your anxieties or in your worries about making phone calls. So making phone calls in an open plan office, which most of us work in, can be quite daunting because you're not sure if people are listening to that conversation. What I will say is that more than half of the time, people aren't even interested. They are too focused on what is going on in their own world to be focusing on what you've got going on that phone call. So we're just going to go through some things that you need to change in terms of your mindset, because a lot of the fears are actually pretty much happening in the mind. They're not actually something to be really worried about. So one of the things that you need to think about is normalizing mistakes. Now, I understand for us being social workers that the thought of making mistakes is quite daunting because we are the expert. You know, what on earth are we doing making mistakes? But to try and really overcome the fears around making phone calls, you have to also overcome the fears about making a mistake. Remind yourself that it's okay to make mistakes, even if you're stuttering on the phone call. If you say something that's maybe not so correct, just give yourself grace and know that, okay, it might have been a mistake, but there are ways that you can turn it around. So the other thing you need to think about is shifting the focus of the call, taking it away from, oh, okay, this is about me, or this is about what's going on for me, and thinking about, okay, what is actually the purpose of this call? Is this to deliver some difficult news? Is this to have a challenging conversation with a parent? Is this because actually it's a really important conversation that just needs to be had? If you focus and if you hone in on that, trust me, all those other anxieties and all those other things that you're worrying about yourself, they'll soon disappear. Another thing that you need to do in terms of your mindset is to challenge those negative thoughts. Where are they actually coming from? Are they coming from you just having quite a negative sense of self, or is it through a fear of judgment? So those thoughts that you're having about, oh, this person is listening to my conversation, or this person is worried about what I'm saying, or all these different thoughts that can come to mind, when you start to contextualize it, is it actually that deep? Another thing that you need to think about doing is starting small. So start off with the little tiny phone calls that you need to make, the easy ones, the quick wins, because that will really help you with building your confidence. So even if it's just making duty calls or making calls on behalf of your colleagues or making calls to families that you know, okay, there's not really anything that I need to say that's going to be difficult or that's going to take a turn, and building your confidence that way. So one of the things that you can actually do is find a quiet space. Now, I know the person who sent in the dilemma said that they were using that as a way to almost kind of hide, or as a way to, I guess, mask the fact that they were worried about making those difficult conversations. But in the interim, it's okay to do that because it's a way of you building your confidence, and it's a way of you having a contained and controlled environment where you're actually able to have those conversations. What I would say is just not to overuse that. So if you feel that it's going to be a really, really challenging conversation, yes, go find a quiet space, because that might help you to concentrate and to really hone in to the phone call. But other times, try having it out in the open, because you never know, someone might give you some advice, someone might give you some feedback about the phone call, or even someone just might give you some support. If it's a really difficult conversation and you've been emotionally drained because maybe the information that you were delivering or the information that you were receiving was quite upsetting, or you've been shouted out, or it's been a really challenging conversation in terms of, you know, the person that you've been speaking with, it can be a cue for your colleagues to see, okay, I can just sense sense that that was a challenging conversation, let me go over to them and just check that they're okay. Another practical thing that you can do is to use headphones. Now, headphones can be a really good way of just blocking out the noise. When things get rowdy in an open plan office, sometimes you just want to put your headphones in and just block out what is going on around you. That is okay too. Put on some headphones and know that you can really focus in on the conversations. I also know there's been some times where I've been on the phone, and if there are people talking around in the office, talking about what they're having for lunch or what they're doing after work, that sometimes the phones can actually pick them up. So putting on some headphones is another real practical way to overcome some of those anxieties whilst you're in an open plan office. Another thing that you can do, which has helped me in the past, is to write a script. Write down the key points that you know you want to discuss during the conversation. And of course, things don't always go to plan, but you know that you've got some prompts that, okay, let me not forget to say this, or if things go, if they ask this question, this is what I can say. And also being okay with not having the answer. I think sometimes we start conversations on the phone thinking that we have to have all the answers. It is okay to say, look, I do not have the answer to that particular question right now. I will note it down and I will go away and I will come back and I will give you the feedback that you need. So that is also okay too. And then the last thing in terms of the practical things that you could do is to practice role playing. So if you're going to have a difficult conversation, and it might be just difficult in the sense that it's not something that you've had to do before. So for example, there was a time when I had to have a conversation with a family after there was a bereavement of one of the parents. And I remember overthinking or just feeling really fearful and anxious about how I was going to broach that conversation, because I didn't want to say the wrong thing. It was a sensitive time. I was thinking the last thing that they want is to hear from a social worker. And yeah, those were just different thoughts that were whirring through my mind. So just maybe having some role play, or just running the conversation by someone and saying, oh, this is the conversation I need to have, this is the call I need to make. Can we just role play, or can I just run this by you, and get some feedback that way. So the last thing that I want us to just quickly think about is, if phone calls can be avoided. Now, I'm not encouraging you to not make phone calls. Please, let's add a disclaimer. I am not encouraging you to not make phone calls. But what I am about to say is that if the phone call can be avoided because it can be put in a message, for example, or it can be put in an email more succinctly and more, just to the point, then that's also something else that you can leverage for yourself. Now, going back to what I said earlier, do not use that as a way of an escape. Use that as a way to sort of manage as you're building, as you are growing. Also understand that the person on the other end, they need some grace around that also. Just because you are struggling, just because I'm struggling with making a particular phone call, just because I'm struggling with my confidence around it, doesn't mean that I should almost in a way water down the service that I'm giving to them, because they still need that level of communication from their social worker, and they would still benefit from that level of communication from their social worker. It just might be that there are times where an email or a message does the job as well. And so let me know, how do you handle difficult or sensitive conversations? Let me know in the comment section. I'd be really, really interested to know. And I think it would be good for the community to just know what it is that helps other social workers around the world, because there are different tips or different ways that we have all built, or different skill sets or different strategies that we have all used to be able to manage something like making phone calls. And what I will say is that if you've made it to the end of this video, please let's also have some grace for others as well. I know some people might be watching this thinking, oh my gosh, why this person can't make a phone call, so why are they in the profession? No, we are dealing with real people, we are dealing with real emotions. We are also real people, we also have real emotions. So we can't just expect there to be a one size fits all approach to how we deal with something like this. So if you have any advice for those who might be watching or listening to this, then please do share your words of wisdom. And as mentioned, if you have any dilemmas that you would like me to read out, or that you would like me to cover during one of these videos, then please do send it to the information that I will leave in the description box. And yeah, I hope you liked this video. Please do like, share, subscribe, send it to your mates, send it to your colleagues, send it to your university, send it wherever you want to within reason. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.